was a young troubadour, swinging promenade. I'll be an old troubadour when I'm gone. Here we go, sides. Well, now the sides promenade and go halfway, walking square through.
All right, here we go. Another Square Dance Callers Talking. Today I'm talking to a gentleman I've met a couple times at conventions. We're going to talk about that. Today I have Brian Freed. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Very good. I'm doing very well, sir. It's a pleasure to finally get to talk to you. Like I say, I don't think we've actually met at conventions, but I've seen you. I've seen you doing things at conventions, so I knew who you were. Made contact with you on the internet, and I've been wanting to do this for a while. So, you're in Minnesota now, correct?
I'm in Minnesota. Yep,
Where,
born and raised.
where exactly in Minnesota are you?
We live in Bloomington,
Okay.
and it's one of the southern suburbs of the metro area. I always tell people we are home to this. We have this little strip mall called the Mall of America,
Oh, okay.
and it's
Gotcha.
about. I live about 2 miles due east, or I'm sorry, 2 miles due west of uh of the Mall of America.
Okay.
So,
I have heard of the Mall America, never been, but I've heard of it actually. Okay. And like we talked earlier, I've been to Minnesota a couple of times, but don't remember much. I was a kid. So born and raised there, huh?
yep. Hmm.
Okay. Fantastic. Ever lived anywhere else in between that or no?
I spent my summers in a little town called Parshall, North Dakota. You'll have to look it up.
Okay.
It's in western North Dakota, on the Fort Berthold Indian Reservation. But anyway, my great grandparents on my mother's side settled there in about 1913 or so, and they had a small farm. And so my uncle, who was the youngest of all their kids, ended up running the farm. And so we used to go up there when I was a kid, up until the time I was a teenager. Every summer, we would leave right after school, and we would get back about a week before school. And so I learned how to milk cows, drive tractors, and
Oh, that's outstanding. Well, you were a cold weather fellow then, North Dakota and Minnesota. Good for you.
uh-huh.
Great.
Yep.
Hey. So working on a farm and everything else at some point, and then this is all about square dancing. When did you start square dancing?
We learned we started in 1986, and that was back when, when you did the 6 months, to learn mainstream, at least we did. And so we graduated in April of 1987, and then we just started square dancing, from there.
Now, so back then there was a set out and it was about 6 months from mainstream. How high do you dance level wise?
Um, I dance plus.
Okay.
I have learned advanced, but I haven't done it enough now lately. I've got to go back and, take a refresher.
Yeah. Now everybody has a story, and some of them are a little bit different. When did you started dancing in '86? Graduated mainstream '87 ish. When did you decide you wanted to stand behind the microphone and do some calling?
Well, my first taste of it was in 1991. Matter of fact, we were out at the National Convention in Salt Lake City,
Mhm.
and walking through the vendor area. There's back then, there were a bunch of record
Right.
vendors. Debbie said, my wife, Debbie, said that she always liked the song Tennessee Flat Top Box.
Okay.
So I bought it. And about 2 months later, we were having our club's camp out. And I talked to our club caller, and I told them what I wanted to do, because I had practiced it. and
Okay.
he put me on, and I did it, and I have no idea how I got through it, but I did. So that was 91. I had thought, well, maybe maybe this sounds like fun, except at the time I owned a specialized automotive machine shop, and I'm working 60 hours a week. So, it didn't leave a lot of time for, learning a new skill.
Mhm.
And so I sold the machine shop in 95. I it was kind of in the back of my mind until 2009. And I guess in late 2008, I kind of started, with my mentor, and we figured out I could actually do it. And so I guess I always said, I joined Caller Lab in 2009. So that's when I started.
Okay, fantastic. Now you said your mentor. Who's some of your influences?
My main mentor is a gentleman by the name of Mike Driscoll.
Okay.
He and his wife Sandy are probably our best friends. He started calling in the middle 60s.
Okay.
And so he was working with me at the beginning, and got me to you know what I needed to know.
Mhm.
And then, I've had a lot of mentors over the years. Okay, people might get mad, but if I forget you, but Ken Ratusi Ken Ratusi has always been there. I've been through, I think, 3 schools with him. Um, Tom Miller has been, in my corner ever since, I started. Um, I'll give you a funny Tom Miller
Yeah,
story
yeah. Go ahead.
later on. So
Okay.
it's not real funny, but it is kind of cute. But and then I've had others. My first caller school um was with Jerry Story, Tony Oxendine, John Jones, and Deborah Carroll Jones. So I spent, since I was in the beginner group, because this was 2009,
Okay.
the fall of 2009 when we went down there. And so I spent a lot of time learning with John and with Deborah. So, Deborah's always had I've always had a very soft spot in my heart for Deborah, because she was there. She kind of taught me, more of the basics than I knew. And I have this, my Deborah Carroll Jones story. So Deborah, if you're listening, this is for you, my dear. Um, I was up calling, and she was next to me, and I called lead, something like lead to the right or lead to the left. Well, I got this little tap on the back of my head, and Deborah telling me there is no to the in lead right or lead left. It is just lead right or lead left. To this day, if I ever call lead to the, I wherever she is, she reaches out and she knows, and she hits me up she taps me on the back of my head, and that's my reminder. So that's my Deborah Carroll Jones story.
Very nice.
But and so, and I've worked with Scott Byers, the late Scott Byers,
Yep.
at a school, Bear Miller. So I've had a lot of
Fantastic.
there I've had a lot of help along the way.
Very nice. That's some of the. I mean, I know most all of those names at one level or another. Fantastic mentors, and that really it does a lot for you. And I try and tell that to people, caller friends of mine that don't get out as much. You've got to find some of those people out there on the national level that can teach, because little things like that. There's no to the. That's fantastic. I was brought up. I had a habit of bend that line, and I was
Oh,
told that it's not bend that line, and but you still hear it no matter where you go. But great stuff there. So a lot of influences. Now, do you just call in Minnesota? I mean, I know we go to conventions, but do you travel? Do you do anything with your calling like that?
I have started. I'm about a year away from retiring from my full-time job.
Okay.
So I have started this year. I mean, I call on a regular basis in like Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, um, occasionally the Dakotas. Um, this year, I am going to be going to Illinois to call for the Arlington Squares in that is in November,
Okay.
and then we'll be calling for a new club in Wisconsin in Beloit, so on the same weekend. So, but and then I'm supposed to call out in Colorado in 2025. They haven't sent me my contract yet, but I know that they will. So,
Outstanding,
you know,
Colorado.
but yes, I am looking. I mean, I would. My wife and I love to travel. Our plans is that we're going to sell the house, buy a motorhome, and go off and see America and go off and see the United States and Canada.
That is
So,
a
and
great
hopefully
plan.
I get enough calling, gigs to help pay for the gas in the motorhome.
Absolutely, I
So,
understand that's a great goal right there, man. I can retire pretty soon myself, and we have a plan. I don't know. We want to do some traveling around the United States, maybe RV. Not sure yet. But that's great. Now, so you call regular Minnesota, and I ask everybody because I've done a little traveling. There any venues that jump out to you, like your favorite places to call, whether it be the flooring, the people, anything like that?
I will always remember. I mean, I guess as I was reflecting on what you may or may not ask me,
Mm.
in 2010, I called at my first national convention. It was in Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay.
And I was never so scared. I mean, probably like most newer callers, I was never so scared as, the first time I was on, that I was on stage and, and I had to call. And I think I did two singing calls. Wasn't, I think by that time, the pattern wasn't exactly there, but I did two singing calls and we got through them and it was just fine. That or in, I guess, a couple of times at nationals now, I've had the pleasure to call with the Ghost Riders, and
Outstanding.
that is a hoot. I mean,
It
uh,
is. What songs have you done with them? You remember those?
um, I've done Amarillo by Morning. I did
Great.
Cowboy Rides Away, and we've done Beautiful Sunday.
I don't know Beautiful Sunday. Your other two were your George Straits. I'm a George Strait fan, huge fan of George Straits. That's good stuff. Yeah, I think I've called with the Ghost Riders twice now at national conventions, and it's a little horrifying at first because it sounds fantastic, but it's not exactly like the recording that I've done 100 times. It dances, and so I'm always afraid I'm going to miss the open because if you miss the open, if you're in your club, you can hit, hey, let me hit the space bar and let's start that over again. I missed that. You can't do that with the Ghost Rider. So
That's true.
it's a lot of fun with that. So you did the singing calls there, choreography wise. And I ask a lot of people that where do you see yourself? Are you a memory guy? Sight? How do you approach a dance when it comes to the choreography?
It really depends on where I'm at. If I am at a convention or uh, something where I don't really know the people, I will call modules. I learned early on, actually, my first caller school with Tony, Deborah, uh, John, and Jerry. They taught me, okay, you might want to use these because you know where everybody is at any given time. So, um, but then if I'm at my home club, or I mean, if I'm up around here, I know the people, so I can call sight.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of us with the 10, 12, 15 years calling, um, with different approaches. Same thing when at my club, it's all sight just because I know who's dancing with who, and they typically line up in the same heads and sides to start the dance. It just depends. But yeah, if I go to a convention, if somebody hires me for the weekend or something like that, the first two tips is going to be nothing but modules and things that I know where it's going to end up being. Then later on in the night, once I get to realize that those two people are together, I might try and do a little sight. But all right. Do you have a favorite call at either?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, I guess I would, I should have asked Debbie what do I call a lot when I'm calling? Because I always have a list, no matter what level dance. And it's there for me to look at to make sure that I will call,
It's a,
everything on the list.
it's a
So
great idea.
and usually on the way home, and now, I mean, I love Debbie, dearly, and she's great, but she will remind me on the way home, what I didn't call.
Yeah.
So,
That's good to have somebody like that. Yeah, my on the occasion when my wife goes with me or something, she'll tell me if something sounded good, did not sound good about something I was doing. You got to have somebody to tell you that because typically the dancers always tell you how good it is. They're not going to
yes.
say what you left out Chase Wright the entire day, something like that. That's good to have. Do you have a get out that you like more than others or anything?
From a corner box,
Hmm.
right and left through, half sachet, pass through to a right and left grand.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. I write them all down, by the way.
Oh, well, okay. Here's another one
Okay.
from a partner line.
Hmm.
Uh, right and left through, slide through, 8-chain, any odd number. I mean, 8-chain 3, 8-chain 5, 8-chain 7, 8-chain 9, and then you'll meet your corner and an element left. One of the best ones I learned from a caller up here by the name of Dick Reeder, and he learned it from Jerry Story. So this is a good Jerry Story get
Okay.
out, and that was he got him into, from a partner line, did the right and left through, did the slide through, said 8-chain 3, 8-chain 3 more, 8-chain 2 more. 8-chain 1 more, ladies and gentlemen. You just did an 8-chain 9. and, and I have called that at a dance, and I used to tell him I know Jerry's not with us anymore, so he can't call me a liar. But I always said, the record I think is like 8-chain 37 by Jerry Story, and so I don't know if he ever did or not, but I think he would laugh at that.
Absolutely, yeah. I only got to meet Jerry at one GSI school, probably the year before he passed away. So
Oh,
would have loved to have got to know him a little better. Didn't have the opportunity. So I love to get out. So I try and always build on everything I get. I'm always borrowing something on occasion. Um, what was the other thing I was going to ask? Oh, before I get too lost, because I do get
Yep.
to talk to him quite often. What's your Tom Miller story?
Pardon me?
Your Tom Miller story.
Oh, okay. This has to do with, um, you may not know, or maybe you do. In 2012, I had a cardiac arrest,
Okay.
and I was basically, my wife walked into our kitchen and found me unresponsive on our kitchen floor, and she did not panic. She called 911. They figured out I wasn't breathing, and they talked her through CPR. And she did CPR on me for 3 minutes until the first responder came to the house. Um, and then they worked on me for a total of 20 minutes. Um, until they got my heart going again. They used a variety of things to, to get it started. Um, they got me loaded into an ambulance. I went to the hospital. Um, I flatlined on them 3 times. I wrote in a thing that in memories of that was I was thinking about this time. I'm trying to check out. I figured, well, hey, this is fun. Yeah, let's go on to the next adventure. But I always said, well, God's not giving in that easy. So I mean, long story short, of course, I survived. Um, I was in a coma for a week. And after I came out of the coma, shortly after, and I can't remember if it was a email or a text from Tom saying, "What are you doing?" He says, "Boy, what some people won't do for attention." And so that's and Tom and I didn't know each other, I mean, that well. I mean, we knew each other, but I mean, it wasn't like we talked every week.
Yeah.
But I always thought that was coming from Tom. If you know Tom,
Mhm.
that's funny. I mean, it really is.
That out of all the podcasts I've done so far, that story is amazing. Even before the Tom Miller part comes in, good Lord.
Oh,
Oh my.
well, there is. This is my public service announcement, if you will allow me to.
Absolutely.
Um, right now in the United States, approximately 10% of people that have a cardiac arrest survive. When I had mine, it was 2 to 3%. So, but we're up to 10. And the reason why we're up to 10 is because more people know CPR and there are more AEDs around. So what I will encourage you to do is I want you to learn CPR. You have a better than 50% chance if you're going to perform CPR on somebody, it is going to be a friend or a relative.
Yep.
So, that's my PSA for
Yeah, no, being in law enforcement for as long as I have, we have to, I think it used to be every year. Now it's every 2 years. We have to do the CPR recert and all that. So
Mhm.
I've gone through it with the little, getting on the floor and all that with the dummies and all that, doing that
Oh,
stuff. So I've
yeah.
done it.
And it's
Yeah,
and
but
it's
other
harder
people
than you
should.
think.
Mhm.
It is really harder than you think, but Debbie, if you asked her if she didn't even think about it. I mean, there wasn't any hesitation. It's like, well, okay, if I don't do this, he dies.
Right.
And you know what? We had been married at the time for 31 years or for 30 years. And I always tell the story, and this will get back to her, but that's okay. Um, I said she thought, well, look, I still got nagging, I still got to nag him some more. So, I might as well do the CPR and save him. I look lousy in black anyway for the funeral. So, we,
Oh, gosh,
but,
that's such
but
a
it was kind of weird. I
story.
mean, I'll say this. I mean, the strangest feeling I can ever remember having was the day I woke up and I looked around and I knew I was in the hospital, but I didn't know why. I mean, I guess I knew I wasn't home and I knew I was in the hospital. But and then that's when they told me, and uh, then Debbie says, well, you know what? He started talking and he hasn't shut up since. So it's kind of, apparently I talked a lot that first day.
Gosh, what a story. Good Lord. Oh,
Yeah. You can read the whole thing, if anybody wants to. I
mhm.
got the whole story up on my website.
Okay.
So,
Before and so because I always forget this. What is your social media? What is your website
my
address?
website is callerbrian.com.
Okay.
And also, if you want to, you can search for me on Facebook
Mhm.
or on what's now called X, but used to be Twitter.
Twitter.
So,
Okay. That's awesome. Well, I don't know what more there is about you other than that you've survived the coma and everything else. But if you're not square dance calling, what do you like to do?
well, I work. Of course, I love my job, although it's kind of nice to look to think, hey, perhaps I'm going to get to retire. I work in the accounting department for a same day courier. And so I've been there for about 20 years. But when I'm not doing that, I have been known to design a few websites.
Okay.
Uh, I am the webmaster for Solid Gold Records and for Cheyenne Records,
I do not.
among
Okay.
others. And then there's a few callers out there and other organizations that I've done their websites and I maintain them.
Okay.
Uh,
Did not.
we are busy. I mean, we tend to stay busy, with our church, you know, in and around there.
Okay. Very nice. On the with the websites for the record labels, do you have any favorite singing calls?
Um, anything. This is actually anything that I've recorded is because I've got a personal stake in it.
Sure. Sure.
I love the fact that I got to record the new version of Mississippi, which is the
Mhm.
John Phillips song, and we got to do it, and it turned out fabulous. But then ones that aren't mine, I
Mhm.
would say I do get requests to do Beautiful Sunday.
Nice. Okay.
Um, I can think of Take It Easy on Arrowhead.
Yep.
Um, anything put out by Scott Bennett that is Bob Seger, because I love Bob Seger. So,
Okay.
I mean, that it's like, yeah, well, there's a new one, so we might as well buy it. And then I guess on Solid Gold, Bob Asp came out with a singing called "My Heart," which I think is Ronnie Millsap,
Okay.
and that's a very nice. I love to do that one. Or the Sprosty twins came out with "Did She Mention My Name?" and I love to do that one. So
Yeah, at some point I want to talk to those two guys. I've only got to see them at conventions, but I just haven't got around to contacting them yet. They've got quite a thing there with the twins and everything else. That's a fun thing to watch. So, well, you kind of gave a little bit away with Bob Seger. Genre of music, not square dance that you like.
um, probably I would say 60s and 70s. Stuff like, I mean, Neil Diamond is probably, if I had to choose a favorite, I would say Neil Diamond. I have liked him
Okay.
ever since I was growing up, and um, and I know that there's several square dance, songs out there that he did. So, I mean, Bob Seger, um, stuff like Lobo.
Hmm.
Um,
Very nice.
I guess kind of the easy listening. I never did much care for hardcore rock and roll.
Gotcha.
Like Kiss or one of those. I
Yeah.
just never did. I just always liked the more mellow side of top 40.
Gotcha.
So
Well, I know they've doing it for years, but there's a lot of record, and of course, with you doing the websites for several of them, some of the music coming out now is just amazing. It sounds so close to the exact song that it comes from. and you have the 60s and 70s. Some of these remakes are just amazing. So it's a good time to be calling. Be nice if we had the crowds that I was told about before I got into calling, but it's a good time, man. That's great stuff.
Well, I think we found, I mean, at least up here, and now I was rather pleased. We have 20 new dancers on my class that I just started in January. So I will give a shout out to Cambridge Corners, who is the club that I teach for. And so we had, and I mean, some of the other clubs have had, larger classes. So I think it still is that people want to get out and socialize. I think,
Yeah.
I think what happened the last 3 years or four, 3.5 years, really did hit people. And I think now they do. I mean, they still want to get out and they want to socialize. So
We had talked earlier too. Uh, I'm going to get to see you for sure at
uh,
the national convention because you've got a part in the callers and stuff like that, the organizing of it. Is that correct?
yes, if you stop in to the caller check-in room, when you do, you will probably see me
Okay.
there.
Okay.
That is what I am kind of overseeing. We have a great group of people that are going to be working with me,
Okay.
but and that was I had wanted to do something for the convention. And I had talked to Bob Asp, and he had said, "Well, hey, why don't you do would this be okay if you did this?" And I said, "Well, it would be wonderful." Because then you get to see pretty much every caller that, is going to come,
Yeah.
come through. So callers and queuers, I should say.
Outstanding. Okay. Well, we'll definitely get to meet you there. Now the Minnesota State Convention. When does that normally held?
That is usually the second full weekend
Hmm.
of it's the second Friday and whatever follows in June.
In June. Okay. Can be pretty sure that there won't be any snow in June.
Probably not. I mean, you know what? It's funny. It um I could get cards and letters if or emails if I'm wrong, but I think I heard it has snowed in every month in Minnesota except for one, and that's July. So I mean that it has, but if it snowed in June, it was probably up in northern Minnesota near the
Yeah.
Canadian border.
I can't
So,
imagine it hung around long either. So you get
yeah.
that. That's awesome. I would love to get up there for one of the conventions for sure at some point. I'm trying to. One of my goals is to call on all 50 states.
Ah, okay.
So and I've got 9 down now, so I've still got some work to
Okay.
do. And everywhere, Midwest, West, and out that way, and I haven't get up. I didn't know anybody until about 5 years ago, even up in those areas. Now I know a few people from going to conventions. Um, Now you joined Caller Lab in 2009. You said
Pardon me?
you joined Caller Lab in 2009.
Yes. Uh-huh. Yep.
Okay. Now, that's where I kind of got really involved in the calling when I started going to Caller Lab conventions. Um, do you do anything with Caller Lab? I don't know. I haven't looked.
Y- Yep, I do. Actually, I am on the SSD committee,
Okay.
Social Square Dance. I am on the Social Connections committee, and I am also on the marketing committee, and I am the vice chairman of
Oh,
marketing.
okay. Very nice.
So,
So being a part of the SSD committee, and I know that's really started going a lot in the last little while. For I don't know the time frame. Tell me about what SSD. What did you decide to get a part of that? Decide to take
well,
that?
actually, it was a Jerry when the committee started and Jerry was the chairman, Jerry
Mhm.
Story. He did. We had talked on the phone for I can't remember why, but he had called me for something, And then he had said, "Well, how come you're not on it?" And I said, "Well, Jerry," I said, "I don't really call it. I said, we are kind of a mainstream, and that's true. Up here, we are, uh, a mainstream, uh, is, pretty much our destination, except for a couple of plus clubs and one advanced and challenge club. But so he asked me, he says, well, he says, why don't you join? And he says, I would welcome your opinions on the, on there, on the committee. And so I did. Um, we have a couple of clubs up here that have started to teach, just SSD,
Okay.
as a, as their destination. I really do. I have read all of the success stories, that there are. I mean, out in Colorado, in Chicago, especially, uh, in I know in Texas, I'm going to forget some of them, but in like Central California, uh, and also in I think in San Diego or in LA, wherever Mike Seastrom's from, I know that they do
Yeah.
theirs. They do that with Buddy Weaver. I know is down at in San Diego area, and I know he does. So it is growing, and it really is kind of a neat thing that you can teach in 12 to let's say 12 to 15 weeks. You can get them, get everything taught, and then just let them dance.
Yep. Very nice.
And occasionally throw in um, my great teaching call for an SSD. Uh, if I'm calling SSD, is spin the top.
Mhm.
Just it kind of neutralizes the floor, if that's the right word I want.
Yeah.
You can put hey, because some people know it, some people don't. So you just kind of teach it, you just show it for everybody, and I always tell them, I reserve the right to call this for the rest of the night. And I will.
Yep.
But I said, other than that, you don't need to remember it after, after tonight, but this is, what you're going to learn. And, and it's kind of nice because, face it, how many singing calls out there have, spin the, can you do spin the top to? So,
Okay. Did not know that. Yeah, I've gotten so much out of the Caller Lab conventions, with like the committees that you're on and just going to that stuff. So I look forward to that every year. I just started doing national conventions, and they're also tremendous. The time you get to spend with callers and meeting other callers and things like that, really good stuff. Now, and I try and talk to everybody and get a little personal. Are you a TV guy or a movie guy, you think?
neither.
Neither?
Neither. Um, I don't watch a lot of TV. We will go out. We haven't as much lately, but we've just been busy. Our schedules have not, been conducive to going out to a movie,
Mhm.
but we do like going to movies. So I
Okay.
guess here, your, our last movie we saw it's called The Boys in the Boat, which is the true story of the 1936 U.S. Olympic rowing team. And if you
Okay.
haven't seen it, go see it. It's a good movie.
Boys in the boat. Okay.
Boys in the Boat, yes. I never got a chance to see. I've got to see if I can get it on either Amazon or somewhere. I want to see Oppenheimer, and I
Okay.
never got a chance to see it when it was in the theaters.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I for years in law enforcement, I worked the movie theaters as a side job for years.
oh,
And so I got to see so many. And now the thought of going and sitting in a theater, I just don't want any part of. For any other reason other than I worked them for so long, I think of all the hassles I had to deal with on occasion. So I'm more of a TV guy. Now I'll watch movies, on TV, but that type of thing. And so now you were how long have you been married now? Because you said you were married 30.
41 years. Well, actually, this year in October it will be 42.
And your wife literally, and I use that word, I try and use it correctly, literally saved your life.
Yes. Yes.
Brian, I got to tell you, buddy, I think that's the top story I've had in the 49 or 50 podcast I've done so far. That is outstanding.
As Tom would say, what some guys won't do for attention. So if he's watching this, Tom, you know I love you, man. You know.
I think he will say. I've talked to Tom several times, whether it be by phone or text. On occasion, I've talked to him, and we do run up onto each other because he comes into Georgia pretty often now, with him being in Alabama. Mm-hmm. So I'll bump into him at some point. Oh my gosh, that's good. I know you've got an engagement here in a little while, so we won't go too much longer. So I will get to see you in Grapevine at Caller Lab.
Yes.
So that'll be good. And of course, now you're a part of the national convention too. So we got that. And so the club that you have, is it the Cambridge Corners Club? You said?
Yes. They're the club that I teach.
What's their dance? What do they dance? Well, I mean,
mainstream.
They
do a half an hour plus. Yeah, they do a half an hour plus, but then they're from 7:30 to 8 is plus, and then from 8 to 10 is mainstream. So, and I call for them once a year because they have every month they have a different caller, and then I teach for them. So this is my second year of teaching for them.
Very nice. Okay. Sounds good. Well, Brian, it has been a pleasure, buddy. I'm going to let you go. I know you said you had to go to dinner, and I'm going to cut you loose. Man, great stories. When I tell everybody this, sometimes before I'm recording and when I'm recording, I got into this for the callers that don't get to go out, that don't go to conventions for whatever reason, and for dancers that watch, because I get a lot of comments from dancers. The last national convention I went to, I had more dancers come up to me and say, "Hey, you're that podcast guy," and I was like, "Well, I'd kind of like to be known as that square dance caller guy," but the podcast is kind of, I guess they get to see me more if they don't know me doing the podcast. So it was all about stories, man. I couldn't have asked for more. This was awesome. I'm looking forward to actually sitting down and talking to you when we get to Caller Lab in Grapevine in a couple of months.
You got it. You got it.
At the national convention. Well, Brian, I'll shut it down. Let you go get some dinner, buddy. It's been my pleasure. Brian Freed from Minnesota, man. I will talk to you soon. It's great getting to talk to you.
Okay, thanks, Charlie.
All right, buddy. You have a good day.
Okay, you too.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Walking square through, all the way, and then you'll swing through again. Boy running a Ferris wheel, and now the center square through to 3. Swinging promenade, I'll be an old troubadour when I'm gone. Side space, grand square, still feel 25. Most of the time, I still raise a little cane when the boys left Alabama and weep. Talks and pretty women, Lord, I'm still right there with them, singing above the crowd and the noise. More ladies chant over and back. I'll be an old troubadour when I'm gone. Ladies and gentlemen, Tony Oxendine.
Charlie Petrie, y'all.
Thank y'all for letting me do that. I appreciate that.